trouble with brinksmanship is that people tend to go over the brink. President Putin and President Obama now face a very serious dilemma in the Ukraine. In February of this year, the government of Yanukovych was overthrown in what amounted to a coup, an undemocratic coup, supported by America and the European Union. And since then, the Ukraine has been plunged into what amounts to a civil war. But it's more than just a civil war between the peoples of Ukraine. There are darker forces involved. On the one side, there's the Americans, who are wanting to push right up to the borders of Russia. That is their objective. And on the other side, you have the Russians, who obviously do not want that to take place. President Putin, once the government had been overthrown in Ukraine, had no option at all, but to annex the Crimea. He has had a naval base there for many years, and they couldn't possibly allow that naval base to fall into the hands of the Americans and NATO, because it would have represented a totally intolerable situation and threat to the people of Russia. If you want to know who's really fighting the war in Ukraine, you only have to look at who is supplying the arms and who is imposing sanctions. The Americans and the European Union and various other countries around the world that support America are applying sanctions to the Russian economy to try and stop the Russians from supporting ethnic Russians, Russian-speaking people, people who have families just across the border in Russia. If they can force Russia to stop supporting those people in the East, then they will be able to accomplish what they intended from the start, and to drive the borders of NATO right up to the Russian border. That is why Putin is supporting the people in the east of Ukraine. He's supporting them because he doesn't want NATO forces right on his border, eye to eye with Russian troops. It is a recipe for disaster. Equally, Putin is now retaliating with sanctions of his own. Sanctions against Poland, sanctions against the Ukraine, turning off the gas, sanctions against Moldova, against Lithuania, against Romania. It's beginning to take on all the hallmarks of brinksmanship gone mad. If Putin feels he is forced to go and fight and send Russian troops into the east of Ukraine, then it's possible, of course, that NATO will put troops in the west of Ukraine. And that will lead to World War III between the two greatest superpowers on the planet. And the death and destruction that will take place across the world will be untold. Now, Putin may think, as some of the people in Russia are saying to him, that if he doesn't fight in the east of Ukraine today, he will have to fight for Crimea tomorrow. Putin may think he has no option but to fight in one place or the other, and he is being backed into an intolerable corner. If he doesn't fight in the east of Ukraine, he might have to fight in the Crimea, and if he doesn't fight in the Crimea, he might have to fight in Russia itself. For 70 years, since the Second World War, we have tried to avoid the two greatest superpowers from coming head to head with each other. But now we're in a situation where that is happening, and where the brinksmanship that is being played is way, way too dangerous. And the more it goes on, the more difficult it will be for either side to pull out. If we go into a World War III between America and Russia, no one must assume it will be over with in a matter of days. And no one must assume that there won't be massive casualties, massive deaths on both sides. No one has a right to play brinksmanship with the lives of many people in the world. It is totally and utterly irresponsible. Both sides have to come together and stop this madness before it goes any further. America has to pull back from wanting to encircle Russia and contain Russia by putting NATO troops on its borders, by stationing missiles in Poland and Czechoslovakia and pointing them at Russia. How would they feel? How would they feel if Russia were to put missiles, let's say, in Mexico and point them at Washington? I don't think the Americans would be very pleased with that. So it's intolerable for America, for the European Union and for the West in general to try and do the same thing to Russia. Russia will not stand for it. They can't afford to stand for it. And then we will be in a situation where we will be faced with a world war that will make the last two world wars seem like a Sunday picnic. We have to stop it. We have to pull back from the brink that those leaders now in charge would take us over.